This weekend, I got to go see John Wick Chapter 2. If you don't know me, John Wick is one of my favorite movies probably ever made, definitely of the last 10 years or so. I was worried when they announced the sequel to John Wick just because I was unsure if they would really be able to capture the same magic that made the first one so great. The first movie is really circumstantial in how it's put together with, I guess, a semi-limited budget and a lot more creative direction, a lot more mystery. It's elevated to a certain point, and I was unsure if the sequel would really be able to match that. And while I ultimately don't think the sequel is as good as the first one, I think the sequel is pretty damn close. It's really, really good overall. So the premise this time around is a little bit more complicated. Without getting too much into spoilers, we're having a situation where John is sort of dealing with the immediate aftermath of what took place in the first movie. An old associate of his wants a favor, he says no, and this sort of sets off a chain of events that puts John Wick against like 50 other John Wicks. So you get to see a little bit more of the assassins and the way they function on the underground, how they live alongside society. You get to see how it functions with these sort of mob-esque characters. It's a lot more politics, it's a lot more power. Most of the time it definitely works for the film's benefit. There are little moments here and there where are just like, so Keanu Reeves is great in this movie. I feel like John Wick is definitely one of his better characters because it sort of plays up on his, for lack of a better term, emotionally stunted portrayal of certain characters. And he has a certain tone, a certain vibe that he brings to a movie. A lot of times that tone or vibe doesn't really work for those movies, but for John Wick, for this franchise and for this character, it works. For to be such a Terminator, such a killing machine, you have to be a little bit more emotionally reserved and stunted, and we start to see that with some of the other assassins we encounter. Common is in this movie. People keep putting Common in movies for whatever reason. He's playing a character named Cassian. He's almost pitted as like John Wick's physical equal as an assassin, but there's nobody who's really fucking with John Wick. Yeah. Common as an actor has always been a real shaky. Like, he's always been really shaky for me. I've never really been convinced or sold on his ability as an actor. Like, I want to give him a chance, and obviously the music game isn't really treating him the same way, so it's better he tries to find his bread elsewhere. But I like him in this movie. I think he plays off of Keanu's more emotionally stunted character as well. They're very similar. They mirror each other a lot. How they speak, how they interact with each other, and it's really interesting sequences that follow. So a lot of the dialogue, the fight scenes between these two characters are like really fun to watch. Ruby Rose is in this movie as another assassin. I can't recall the character's name right now, I'm sorry. But there's a more sexual nature to this movie. And I think Ruby Rose brings that in a really interesting way because she's like this androgynous, this androgynous lady, in a suit. It's not over the top. It's not anything that's demeaning. It's just a really different thing because it's not something you really see. A character who kind of looks like Justin Bieber. That she's here more so as a presence that's like sort of constantly watching. She doesn't have to say much. She doesn't have to do much. But she is one of those characters that sort of intimidates the shit out of the audience because you expect to underestimate her. She's small. She's small in stature compared to all the other characters, all the other assassins. Lawrence Fishburne is back as the Pigeon Man from Hey Arnold, a high-ranking character or officer within the Assassin's Guild. Really over the top, he reads a lot of the Bible. He's very, it's interesting. It's really interesting to see his character and start to see Lawrence Fishburne and Keanu Reeves sort of come back together. The last big time we saw these two together was in the Matrix trilogy. Morpheus and Neo was a dynamic that was really interesting. So bringing him back to play off of Keanu's John was a really interesting and fun thing to see. What helps this movie is that it ultimately doesn't take itself too seriously. It is not afraid to poke fun at itself a little bit. I found myself laughing a lot more in this movie than I was laughing in the first one. The first one was like a little bit more serious throughout the entire thing. This movie was funny. It wasn't all jokes. It wasn't like stand up at John Wick's house or anything like that. But like I said, there was a lightheartedness just watching these sort of interactions. And the cool thing about John Wick is that you see these battles, you see these fights wear down on him. The mythology of the boogeyman, the Baba Yaga, that sort of surrounds him. It almost it makes it seem like he is indestructible. But when you see it in action, it's a little bit different. Like when you see it in action, it's a whole new level of it's different because it's realistic. This is a real man, literally just being better than everyone else. You know, he's getting his ass kicked. He is taking hits. He's getting shot. He's getting cut. He's bleeding. He's limping. He is being worn down, but he's resilient. That's essentially what makes John Wick. It's his focus. It's his resilience, and we get to see that. There is one element that is introduced to John Wick as an assassin that bothers me only a little bit, and that's more so because it takes away from his ability to. It took away a little bit from his ability to be like a self-sufficient, killer who was just really that good. When going into the Assassin's Guild a little bit more, and when really understanding the mythology of this world, this universe built, there's a moment where it becomes a little Bond-esque in terms of the gear and just the network. It becomes a little bit more like a Bond series. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think for the character of John Wick, I think the character of John Wick was just really interesting because it's more so his skill. It was more so about his skill. And it's really hard to talk about without spoiling, so I'll just wait for you guys to see that. Visually, this movie has some really powerful and impressive shots, but it's not on the same level as the first movie. The first movie, I think from top to bottom, was just visually a lot more impressive because of the more focused budget, and it had more of a art project feel. It had more of a photographic feel. Every single shot is really artistic and really well planned and just made to be beautiful. There's a lot of shots like that in this movie too, but it's just not quite on that same level. There's a lot more generic shots when it comes to the action sequences, and it just doesn't really impress me on the same level. The action sequences in this movie are insane. They really amp it up to 25 in this shit. He is, he's killing dozens and dozens of men at a time, with new, interesting, and creative ways. Seeing him sort of infiltrate and escape. Seeing this whole process of infiltrating and escaping, taking down an army of these assassins, and then the pencil. You get to see what he does with the pencil, and it is wow. It is. This movie is a little bit gorier. The first one, this movie is a little bit gorier compared to the first one. The first one was, CGI, digitally added, blood or blood splatters when he got the headshots and things of that nature. But this, you get to see a lot. There's so much. One of the best parts about the action sequences is sort of carried over from the first one, which is a fixed camera. You see everything that's taking place. You're not having 50 different cuts and shaky cam to sort of hide, the actors' inability to actually perform some of these stuff. You can see everything that's happening, every fist swing, every gunshot, everything. There's no shaky cam. You're not disoriented. With all that said, I really enjoyed John Wick Chapter 2. It is a really great movie overall. I can honestly say that it's more so to do with personal preferences and gripes, because some people may like Chapter 2 more than Chapter 1, and I think there's a lot of valid reasons why they may like it. Hopefully the third movie will be almost or just as good as the first two, or hopefully even better, and we can have a new trilogy. We can have a new trilogy of great action movies. John Wick Chapter 2 gets an 8.5 out of 10. And thank you guys for watching this video. I'm also working on an analysis video for the first John Wick movie. Hopefully that'll be up within the next week or so. It goes a little bit deeper into what makes the movie work, what makes it doesn't. My own personal preferences, why I love it so much. If you're interested and you want to see more or learn more about John Wick, look out for that video. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, do whatever it is people do when they like videos on YouTube. Hopefully this wasn't too terrible. So yeah. All right, guys.